Yeah. Next in animation, we have a Mr. Miracle animated series. We got a first look at a Mr. Miracle animated series. It is described as an adult-oriented animated series, and comic writer Tom King will serve as showrunner. Um, and Darkseid is expected to appear. So I can't remember if I actually sent you an image of this. If you don't mind just looking up Mr. Miracle animated series, they put up like a little still, and the story is described as the son of God raised by the devil as he tries to save his family, his world, and maybe even himself. So I'm a huge
Hmm.
fan of Mr. Miracle and the New Gods. So this is very
Hmm.
exciting to me. And in recent interviews, Gunn has stated that he's working on a kinda sequel to Superman, and I feel like that could
Mm.
end up being a New Gods movie because Darkseid was
Hmm.
originally a Superman villain. So I could see
Oh.
Superman heavily being featured in a story about the New Gods, which there's also currently an ongoing New Gods comic. So there could be some synergy there. But it's also not like confirmed that this is going to be canon to the main universe. This could be an Elseworlds thing. Which either
Hmm.
way, I'm just happy that more kind of like casual fans of comic book media are being introduced to these lesser known characters like Scott Free, Mr. Miracle, and Big Barda. But there's also the Tom King of it all. Tom King has been under fire lately due to
Ooh.
his run on Wonder Woman, as you've heard me rant about.
Right.
And as a result, there's a bit of, I feel like, revisionist history happening. On the surface, Tom King's Wonder Woman is a beautifully drawn comic by Daniel Sampier. His art is incredible. With a very fun and engaging writing style by King. I've always enjoyed his style of writing, which is usually done through a character's narration. Um, but
Hmm.
when you dig into it, as I've discussed before, um, there's a lot of somewhat subtle misogyny mixed with an odd sense of patriotism that makes the book feel more like propaganda than a story about DC's greatest champion of like peace and love. But
Right.
outside of this, he's written some incredible things like Supergirl One of Tomorrow, which is currently being adapted into a movie, and they dropped the One of Tomorrow from the name, and they're just going to call the movie Supergirl. And Mr. Miracle, which is the comic that this series is very likely pulling from, seeing as the writer is the showrunner. Um,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean he's beyond criticism, and that people shouldn't be vocal about
Right.
how he writes woman and urge Gunn to make sure that Big Barda, Mr. Miracle's wife, is done right. But at the end of the day,
Right.
he is a damn good writer, and he's wrote some really good stuff, and he's currently writing Black Canary Best of the Best, and I've yet to notice any of the glaring issues that I've seen in the Wonder Woman comic in that comic. Um, so I just feel like you know maybe Wonder Woman just wasn't the right character for him. Uh,
Yeah.
and that might just be the problem overall. And
Hmm.
or maybe even behind the scenes, he's being forced to do certain things. Again, I don't want to necessarily like. At the end of the day, remind you, he worked for the CIA. I feel like
Right.
I'm just personally not a fan of you don't like somebody, so you pretend like everything they make is bad. That's not true. Bad
Hmm.
people can be
Yeah.
talented.
Can
Like,
make good things. Yeah.
yeah, this guy might suck because he worked for the CIA. Doesn't change the fact he's written some really good goddamn comics, okay? And I'm
And in
not.
fact,
Go ahead.
oh. Yeah, it's very reductionist to say that like bad people can't make good things. In fact, like that's like I don't know how to phrase what I'm thinking, but it's like that's not a good viewpoint to have because if you attach morality to talent, that's a whole separate issue. Then because it's like good people can make bad stuff, bad people can make good stuff. We have to look at works not based on morality, but based on like subjective thing, not subjective, objective points of view. Like this is bad not because he's a bad person necessarily, but because the writing has this, and this, or because it lacks this, and this. Because
Exactly.
I don't know,
And I
just
also think if
I just don't
you
like it.
I also think that if you want to encourage people not to interact with something because you don't like the person, say that. Don't try and make up
Mm-hmm.
something about the way it's written is being bad, unless it's true, like it is with his Wonder Woman. Don't try and like say that about other stories he's written just because you don't like the current story he's writing. Because there's a bit of evidence
Right.
of him not being great at writing woman, but not to the extent of the way he's writing Wonder Woman in all of his other books. Like, for example, Supergirl One of Tomorrow. I've not really heard anybody, even to this day, where we're hearing a lot of people complain about his Wonder Woman run. I've not heard anybody go back and start complaining about how he writes Supergirl. I've not heard any actual
Right.
credible, like, actual criticism other than, oh, he's not good at writing women. But nobody's actually gone into detail about anything that's bad about what he did with Supergirl, because I don't think he did anything bad with Supergirl. So it's like, if you don't like him, that's fine. And if you don't like the way he's writing Wonder Woman, I agree. But like you said, it's very reductionist to go bad person, therefore everything he makes bad. That's not how that works.
Right.
Also, a person can write a good thing one day and a bad thing another. That's also how that works.
Exactly.
Not everything somebody makes is going to be, the best thing in the world. But, hopefully it's good.
Right.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
stuff like this, animated projects, live action projects, and of course comics aren't made by one person either, but it tends to be one writer with, sometimes the artist gives their 2 cents with the writing, but most of the time not really. So it's like the writing for the comic is mostly him, whereas for a show, is like, it's a whole team of dozens, if not hundreds of people. So
Right.
like, hopefully, there are some people there to help make up for some of his, deficiencies that we've seen in his writing lately. And, Big Barda is written well, which it's been a while since I read Mr. Miracle. I remember liking it a lot, but, I wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't written the best in that.
Right.
But in my memory, it's kind of just so heavily focused on Scott, the main character, Mr. Miracle, that I feel like there just wasn't a lot of room to miswrite her. But maybe that's part of the problem that people found in that book, is that maybe she just wasn't in it as much as they thought she should be. But
Right.
and hopefully it's better in this overall. Again, I'm not trying to necessarily defend Tom King as much as defending the idea that you shouldn't be necessarily assigning morality to talent.
Yeah.